So Tom Friedman of the New York Times wrote a classic Tom Friedman op-ed, which I think he's written some version of this innumerable times, right? This is the second one I can think of in like the last couple of months. So what he's decided we really need is a civil, bipartisan cabinet to line up behind the Biden administration, because the real problem in America is the tone and the lack of civility. It's not at all a bankrupt corporate ideology, where actually the things that terrify me the most are the areas where Republicans and Democrats agree, as we cover on this show. Great friend of the show, David Sirota, had an amazing point about this column. He says that Friedman believes the best in us, because that's the whole idea, is this cabinet would represent the best of America. The best in us is apparently 3 billionaires, 2 corporate CEOs, 2 private equity moguls, and the governor who failed to do what other governors did and whose state is now the global epicenter of the virus. That would be Andrew Cuomo. Yeah. Well put, David.
Yeah, it is. And let's so we made fun of this a little bit on the show yesterday, but it got a little bit more pickup, and I think that people need to truly understand how terrible it is. For Vice President, the governor of Michigan, okay. But then for Treasury Secretary, Michael Bloomberg. For HHS, Bill Gates.
You lost me there.
Yeah, Secretary of Oversight for the coronavirus spending, Elizabeth Warren, who voted for it and also didn't have any of the what was it, the 8 things or 10 pillars?
Yeah, 8 things.
8 pillars.
8 demands, I think,
that none of which are met still, and nary a peep, and saying that Biden stewarded the economy very well during the financial crisis, contrary to her entire public brand. The Attorney General, Merrick Garland, Secretary of State Mitt Romney, Defense Secretary Michelle Flournoy, and then Labor Secretary Ro Khanna, Secretary of National Infrastructure, the CEO of Walmart, Commerce Secretary, the American Express CEO. It's just like, oh, and here's my favorite one. Educational Secretary Laurene Powell Jobs, Steve Jobs' widow. So this whole thing is just utterly ridiculous, because so much of it is...
Did he make AOC like the UN secretary
AOC was the UN secretary. And
which is like a toothless, like nothing position. Let's put the one who actually has like real ideas and fire. Let's put her in, but in as like minimal a position as we possibly can.
This is like taking cosmopolitan elites from every single sector of what is wrong with American society and then putting them in charge of like the entire United States government. Like taking the defense infrastructure and putting them in forward. People who have outdated ideology, putting them forward as Secretary of State. People who are neoliberals, putting them in charge of the Treasury Secretary. People who work for big business in charge of the Commerce Department. It's just like, I can go on and on and on. And I think this is perfect because, as I said yesterday on the show, I don't think there's a more destructive book that has been written in the last like 10 years than Team of Rivals, because this is what they think that a team of rivals really is, which is a bunch of people who share a shared conclusion that the economy is just fine and needs to be tinkered on the edges just a little bit. Like business as usual in culture, in the economy, in every sector of American society. Just needs to be moved on and tinkered a little bit towards human flourishing, because we were already flourishing in the first place. They don't understand the actual core problems, and this is what the American elite thinks is bipartisanship, is getting like Mike Bloomberg and Mitt Romney in the same cabinet. The truth is they've always agreed, regardless of what party that they've been in. I guess we both were in the same party not that long ago. Same with like Bill Gates. And look, I think Bill Gates is an incredible like philanthropist and all of that. But in terms of his ideology and whenever it comes to all of this, do you really think, does he seem to be the person who needs to administer HHS, the largest health and human services department, like the largest government agency when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid, public assistance, and these are the things. This is just how elites think about government, being like, "Oh, let's put that guy in charge."
Well,
really, it's all about serving actual public interests.
Well, I mean, it's worth pointing out too. Trump did bring some like corporate Democrats into his administration. I remember Thomas Friedman like lauding him for that.
Steve Mnuchin was a Democrat,
but.
So was Gary Cohn.
But here's the other piece of this. There's like this obsession. It's like a religion. For years, I've been hearing about how the real problem in D.C. is the lack of civility. And there's this whole like nostalgia thing. Biden is all about this too, that, you know, people used to stay, they bring their families here into D.C. and they knew each other and they were friends and they'd have dinners together and they were civil to one another and all of that. as like some halcyon bygone era where that's the main problem. It's just that they don't have enough lunches together, rather than that actually they have collaborated in large part on shipping jobs overseas, on sending our young men and women, especially who have working class backgrounds, off to fight and die in unnecessary wars, right? I mean, massive corporate bailout programs with little oversight and scrutiny. Those are the real problems. It's not that they don't talk, it's that they actually get along too much on the areas that are selling out the American public. But there's such a lack of any sort of vision, ideas, ideology that it's sort of, the American elite are sort of hollow and bankrupt on all of that. So they fall back on these like fantasy civility, lineups.
Yeah, I always think back about when people say, "Oh, there's not enough bipartisanship." There's plenty of bipartisanship on the stuff that matters. And one of my favorite monologues I did here was about that AIG birthday party, where they threw a 10-year birthday party for AIG in the chamber of the House Ways and Means Committee, thrown by the Democrat and other Republicans were there. I was like, that's it. That's perfect. The chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, of the Appropriations Committee, of the committee tasked with, levying the public's purse, is throwing a birthday party for AIG, which received hundreds of millions of dollars in bailout funds 10 years prior, which is a bipartisan bash where they had themed cocktails and all these other things. And they all got drunk, and it was all, like a fun time. There's a lot of bipartisanship if you want to focus on the things that matter. And that's exactly what this cabinet is. And that's, frankly, this isn't that far off from what a Biden administration is going to look like.
That's true. That's actually true.
It's cartoonish, but it will.
Minus the only good people like the ROCON and the AOC, who will not even be included at all. But the Biden administration will probably be worse.
This is very much what it will look like and who will have the power. These are the same people.
Jamie Dimon.
But these are the people these are the people who ran the Obama administration. Google and Facebook and finance was never more powerful than they were under Obama. That's what a Biden administration was going to.
And even those people who didn't work for those institutions before the Obama administration, then they went over to Amazon and Uber and wherever, selling their data strategies to casinos in Las Vegas to try to extract more wealth from people. That was great. There's also something about New York Times, the shining gem of our nation's national press, having Thomas Friedman write the same column over and over and over again.
Somebody said, they're like, I'm just sitting here getting drunk on my couch thinking about how Thomas Friedman got paid thousands of dollars this week to write this column proposing the corporate cabinet for Joe Biden. Makes you think.
Nice work, guys.
All right,
we'll have more for you after this.